Ever wonder how traditions get started? The truth is, most of them weren't planned. They were just accidents, quick fixes, and temporary solutions that nobody ever got around to changing. Take the Middle Ages, a time that basically ran on the motto, "We'll fix it later." Think about town criers, before newspapers or smartphones. If a fire broke out or a new law was passed, you needed someone to shout about it. In a world where most people couldn't read, these emergency messengers became the official source of all news. What started as a temporary gig turned into a full-time, authoritative job. Or how about bells? Farmers first put them on livestock to keep track of them. Simple, right? But soon, the idea caught on. Bells were on children so they wouldn't get lost, on the clothes of nobles to announce their arrival, and even on jesters' hats, just for fun. Society became a constant jingle-jangle of fashion and practicality. Then there were the laws. During a famine, the English government created the assize of bread and ale to control prices. It was supposed to be temporary, but it lasted for over 600 years. They even had bread police to enforce it. Other weird laws just piled up because nobody ever bothered to repeal them. Like bans on snowball fights, or rules forcing you to carry a lantern at night. They were just added to the stack. This "let's just wing it" attitude shaped everything. Castle kitchens, often crammed into hallways near the toilets after a fire, because renovating was too much trouble. Tavern floors, someone threw straw down once to soak up spills, and it became a centuries-long tradition. They'd just add a new layer on top, creating a gross, archaeological sandwich of filth. Even roads weren't engineered. They were just muddy paths people walked on so many times they became permanent. Surnames started as simple nicknames. John was a baker, so he became John Baker. William lived near a hill, so he was William Hill. These temporary tags stuck and became hereditary family names. Even entire cities, like London, often grew from temporary worker camps that were just never dismantled. They expanded chaotically, without any plan, resulting in the winding, confusing street layouts we see today. The Middle Ages teach us a powerful lesson. Society doesn't always evolve by grand design. More often, it's built on a foundation of accidents, improvisation, and the sheer inertia of habit. History is filled with figures who are remembered for just one thing, reduced to a simple label. But behind every nickname is a complex, human story. Let's talk about Mary Tudor, a princess who became a queen, but who history remembers only as Bloody Mary. Mary's early life was a fairy tale. As the daughter of King Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon, she was a brilliant, beloved princess, the jewel of the English court. But her world shattered when her father decided he wanted a new wife and a male heir. He annulled his marriage to Catherine, declared Mary illegitimate, and tore her away from her mother. She went from princess to outcast overnight. To survive, she was forced to submit to her father's will, accepting his new church and her own humiliating status. She spent her youth in isolation, pushed aside even further during the reign of her Protestant half-brother, Edward VI. But Mary was a survivor. When Edward died, a plot tried to place Lady Jane Grey on the throne. Mary rallied the people, marched on London, and claimed her birthright. At long last, she was Queen of England. Her goal was to restore the Catholic faith she so deeply believed in and to secure her dynasty. She married Philip of Spain, hoping for an heir to unite their kingdoms. But the marriage was deeply unpopular in England, and worse, the children she longed for never came. She suffered from phantom pregnancies, likely triggered by years of trauma and stress, which left her heartbroken. Driven by a genuine, if severe, religious conviction, she began persecuting Protestants. The Marian burnings were brutal, and they cemented her infamous legacy. but in her mind, she was saving souls. Mary died at just 42, childless and alone, feeling like her life's work had failed. Her story isn't just about religious tyranny. It's a tragedy about a woman broken by politics, shaped by abandonment, and desperate to restore the world she had lost. Now let's turn to another legendary figure with a grand vision, Alexander the Great. After conquering the vast Persian Empire, he didn't just want to rule it, he wanted to fuse two worlds together. His dream was to create a new, multicultural empire where Macedonians and Persians were one people. To kickstart this vision, he threw the most ambitious wedding party in history at the city of Susa. In a massive ceremony, he himself married to Persian princesses, but he didn't stop there. He arranged for 80 of his top generals and officers to marry high-ranking Persian noblewomen, all on the same day. This wasn't about romance. It was a powerful political statement. He was literally binding East and West through blood ties, legitimizing his rule as the heir to the Persian kings, and creating a brand new hybrid elite loyal only to him. It was a bold, visionary plan. But his own men weren't happy. The Macedonian soldiers, who had fought and bled for years to conquer Persia, saw it as a betrayal. They felt Alexander was abandoning his roots and going native. They resented the Persian customs he adopted and the favor he showed to their former enemies. Alexander's dream of a unified culture died with him. Just a year after the Susa weddings, he was dead. Almost immediately, his generals divorced their Persian wives, casting them aside. Alexander's own Persian widows were murdered in the power struggles that followed. His grand experiment in social engineering collapsed. The dream of cultural fusion was noble, but it was forced from the top down. Alexander learned a hard lesson. You can conquer an empire with an army, but you can't change hearts and minds with a decree. True cultural change has to grow organically, not be imposed by even the most powerful king. Not all societies are built on accident or noble dreams. Some are built on pure, cold, brutal design. Welcome to ancient Sparta and its infamous education system, the agoge. This wasn't school. It was a human production line for creating the perfect warrior. At the age of 7, Spartan boys were taken from their families and thrust into a world of state-controlled cruelty. The goal was to erase their individuality and forge them into weapons for the state. They were kept deliberately hungry, encouraging them to steal food. If they were caught, they were beaten not for stealing, but for their incompetence. Weakness of any kind was publicly humiliated. Emotions like fear and pity were systematically crushed. Their training focused on survival, stealth, and killing. But the agoge had a darker, secret component, the cryptia. This was a program for the most promising young trainees. They were sent into the countryside with nothing but a knife, tasked with a terrifying mission to spy on and terrorize the Helots, Sparta's massive enslaved population. The cryptia served as a brutal form of state-sponsored terror, a way to keep the Helots in a constant state of fear and prevent any thoughts of rebellion. The final test for these young assassins was to hunt and kill a designated Helot in cold blood without being detected. It was their graduation proof that they had shed all traces of individual morality and now belonged completely to Sparta. The Spartan system was terrifyingly effective. It produced warriors who were fearless, disciplined, and utterly loyal. But the cost was their humanity. The agoge and cryptia show us the terrifying extreme of social engineering, where the state's survival is deemed more important than the individual's soul. It airs a chilling reminder of what can happen when society decides that people are not to be nurtured, but to be forged. Thank you for watching. If you found this journey through history as fascinating as I did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more stories that show us how we got to now. See you next time.